You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Are you ready to learn the 3 secrets to launching a successful podcast? Hi, I'm Bill, a recent client of the Podcast Mogul. If you've been thinking about starting a podcast but aren't sure where to begin, he's got you covered. He is hosting a free webinar where he will share the 3 secrets that can help you launch, grow, and monetize your podcast without any fancy equipment or technical headaches. Click the link in the show notes to save your spot now and let him help get your podcast off the ground.
Welcome to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Join the podcast mogul Phil Better as he interviews successful entrepreneurs that make their living in the digital world. Now, let's join your host, Phil Better, and his special guest today on Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast.
Welcome back to another amazing episode of Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm, of course, Phil Better, the podcast mogul. And today I am exceptionally excited for our guests because they are the podcast strategist and they help businesses approach podcasting, turning it into a powerful growth and engagement tool. So he is the founder and podcast coach behind a company that has successfully guided over 50 podcasts, probably close to 100 by now, providing that strategic planning is key to a podcast triumph. With a philosophy that shuns the notion of winging it, he emphasizes treating podcasts like a business to drive tangible results. His unique insight stems from a challenging personal experience, being removed from his company's podcast because it didn't drive leads, only to quit and later coach numerous business owners to podcasting success. Since 2020, he's driven over 200,000. He's probably closer to 500,000 now. Downloads, generated thousands of leads, and produced hundreds of episodes for B2B businesses. He offers customized packages, podcast strategies for high-level business owners and provides comprehensive social content strategy on top of it across platforms like LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, and of course, our favorite, Instagram. His commitment to guaranteed growth, lead generation, and brand awareness has made him the sought-after expert in the field. So listeners, get ready to dive deep into the strategies that separate the successful podcast from the rest and learn from how to transform your podcast into a business-driving machine. It's great excitement that I introduced the man, the legend, the podcast strategist himself, Ryan Sullivan. Ryan, thank you so much for being here.
I know this is maybe the reaction that you often get, but that was an intro, man. Wow.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
I kind of get a bit of those reactions, and I always say the same thing. I'm a lover of hip hop, but I can't rap. So I always look at the hype man and the hype person, and that's who I look at myself. I'm the hype person for this episode. You're the star. You're the big rap star of this episode. So,
well, actually, I do rap as well. So
even better. Look, hey, we're gonna work together.
That's my past life. We're gonna get there, but
yeah, I do want to touch on that. But okay, so you started rapping and then you transitioned to the business world. What made you decide to transition from rapping, which is a highly lucrative career? We see Drake and Kendrick right now beefing, so you can jump in on that beef. But what made you decide to become an entrepreneur and give up the hopes of a rap star lifestyle?
Kendrick won.
Yes.
So I'm a fan of both, by the way. I'm a J. Cole guy, so hey, that's me. That's just how I am. But yeah, man, so I started in music when I was in high school. I mean, I've been playing my whole life, but one of my friends, got into rapping and freestyling and stuff, and I ended up spending a lot of time with him, so it just carried over to me. I'm a words person, not a numbers person, But long story short is we released a diss track in high school, and I'm talking teachers, substitute teachers, bus driver, like everybody listened to it. It was crazy. So that entire thing, I mean, I was a kid, like I didn't know any marketing or digital marketing, right? But like I didn't realize that, okay, you just put this on SoundCloud. And then if it's good enough, people will, even if it's not good, because it wasn't that good, people will still listen to it. So that was my introduction to like that music world, right? I had made YouTube videos before that, got 100,000 views on a video when I was like 12, like quit because I thought it was nerdy. And so funny, man. I literally made YouTube videos in 2014, and now in 2024, I teach companies how to do it. So it's crazy, a full circle moment. But in terms of the transition, I mean, yes, music can be lucrative, but it's mostly not. It's impossible. It's almost impossible to make money in a lot of the traditional, forms that people will make money, right? So it's like you go on tour, but you're making more money from the merch, right? And there's all these things like you have 1 million streams, but you're making more money from a Patreon. It's just, sure, there's a ton of artists who make a ton of money, and I'm not saying it's not possible. Here's the thing. I didn't dedicate myself to that, and I honestly most likely did not have the belief that I could make money with it or make it a career. So then at the same time I'm podcasting, and I can kind of pause there, but I got into podcasting in 2018, so I've been doing it for 6 years now. And then that slowly, I'm talking slowly, I even had a hip hop podcast. I interviewed rappers, singers, songwriters. That ended up, that was my first 10,000 downloads, and that was super local and really fun. But slowly over time, the podcasting started to take over my life.
I love that. And so when you, or business ties, say business ties, I don't like that word, but the first time you actually used a podcast for B2B was with the company that you, and then you left. How did you convince them to start a podcast? That's my question, because I'm pretty sure there's a few listeners here who work for a corporation and they're like, I want to start a podcast, and I think my business would be the right thing. How did you go about convincing them about a podcast?
Yeah, so we can go deeper into that in terms of, hey, if you're in a company right now, what you should do. I can give you definitely a few prescriptions there. But what happened with me is I had a guy on my podcast named Tori Grant, and he said he made 6 figures doing social media management. So he was like, here's my scripts, get on Upwork and just apply for these jobs. So I applied for all of them, ran out of credits, didn't get any of them. And so I'm like, you know what, but I'm doing this podcast. Let me see if podcast editing, maybe I can do that. Now, this was 2018, 2019. So Upwork and Fiverr, what it is today, it was still a lot of people on there, but not as crazy as today.
Yeah.
So I'm on there, and there's a company, they messed up. They put the name of their company in the Upwork post, which you never do that. And for people that have posted on there or applied on there, that's a sin, because that people are going to contact you, right? So I went on the website, and I booked a call with the founder of the company, acting like I was a company. And I just used my YouTube channel as a reference. And I'm like, hey, it's a YouTube channel. I'm looking for marketing help. The guy gets on the call. I tell him, hey, I'm here for the podcast editing. I ran out of credit on Upwork. You're in New York. I'm in New Jersey. I just figured, why not book the call and let me see what happens. And he was like, I love the approach. I like the hustle. Why don't you come in the city and we'll do an interview? I'm like, okay. So I'm going in the city. I get to the city, right? This is like 2.5 hours it takes me to get there. Bus, train, car. I'm walking to the interview, and I'm like, wait, I don't know what I'm interviewing for. I was supposed to edit the podcast from Upwork. So I'm going through to an interview that I don't even know what job I'm interviewing for. So I get there, like the guy's like on his phone. He's kind of like not paying attention, but he's like, yeah, all right. So like, you want to just run the podcast? You're going to host it, produce it, edit it, video, audio, design, publish, SEO. I'm like, yeah, sure. He was like, how much do you charge? I'm like, well, I used to be a mechanic. I was a mechanic at that time. So I was like $15 an hour. He's like, okay, sounds good. So that was my first gig. So I didn't have to convince him. He wanted me to do everything. I was definitely more outgoing, definitely had a little bit better, feel for people. I'm a people person. I'm an extrovert. He was more of a numbers guy. So it made sense. But fast forward 19 episodes, and he's like, we didn't get any leads from it. And I'm like, that's not the problem. You're the problem. Like, the problem is you stopped. Don't do that. You have to keep going. It takes a long time. So that was my first intro into B2B podcasting, and that was in startups actually.
Nice. And so I have to say, I have to commend you on how you got the gig, because that's, again, like you said, it shows chutzpah, it shows commitment, it shows grit, determination, pretty much hustle, because you trick them into giving you the job, but it trick in a positive way. Like,
I'll always find a way.
Yeah, that's the goal, is to always find a way to convince a business, because it's creating your own media empire for a business that then can be used to add more services to your businesses. You can offer this offer to other businesses and build their podcast and stuff like that for them, and then you have an extra column, another pillar to grow on. When you unfortunately did get let go, which obviously it was the man's fault for not understanding the power of podcasting, how it takes, I think Tom Hunt, founder of Bcast, said it takes about 6 months for
That's what our clients are. We're able to speed that up a little bit now because of through experience. But yeah, I mean, 6 months for anything really truly meaningful to happen, I would say, in terms of like even like lead generation, you know?
Yeah. With you then learning all this, pretty much being paid to learn how to run a podcast for a B2B, when you were let go, were you already working with other people, other podcasts, other businesses to build that, or were you solely focused on this one enterprise?
I had no other. What happened was, like I said, I was a mechanic, so I was able to quit that job. And it's not I worked at a shop, mom and pop shop. They trained me. I worked there for 4 years. I could go back there today, and they have a full-time job for me, like 100%. You know.
Yeah, you didn't burn any bridges leaving.
No. And I had worked 10, 12 different jobs up until this point, you know, so I always had a way to work. But what I'm saying is, like, if I was slow or something, I would go to that. But what happened was I came on for the podcast, then they put me on sales. So I'm doing like, you know, spreadsheets, I'm doing scraping, I'm doing like sales calls. So it's not even that they just took me on the podcast. They kept me in the company, but I quit because this guy, like, I knew it wasn't the right person to work for. The company ended up dissolving. I don't know if they filed for bankruptcy or they just ended the company or whatever it was, but it was a lot of like, I have some horror stories from that, like fun stories to tell today, but in the moment, crazy. But what happened was, no, I did not have any other clients or anything. I left at the end of 2019, or no, I left in February 2020, somewhere around there.
Oh, the smart time to quit.
Yeah, perfect time to quit. And then I planned on starting my business in March 2020. So I did that. I got the logos. I got the business plan. Wilfredo, is that how you pronounce his
Wilfredo
name? That's such a cool name. Shout out to you, Wilfredo. That is a really cool name. So I'm starting the business March 2020. And again, yeah, perfect time. But then it actually was the perfect time. And so, no, I didn't have any clients, but I got one editor. His name's Mo Ali, or not editor. I got one editing client. His name's Mo Ali. He's a professional soccer player. You can look him up. He's got millions of followers. He was the nicest guy ever, $20 an episode. Then I got a contract with a mentalist, and that was wild. So, and I don't even know. They just called me one day. We still don't know how they ended up getting my number. But no, I had no clients, but then I ended up getting enough to float me through, and then I would work at my mechanic job whenever I was slow.
I love that. I love that. I love how the day job was still there whenever you needed to pick up a few hours if things were slow. So after you got your professional soccer player, professional footy player, helping him with his podcast, and you get this mentalist with he probably divined your phone number being a mentalist, you know, there.
Yeah, right. He probably summoned it.
Yeah, I have some friends who are mentalists, and it's always not fun being around them when they're starting their stuff. When did you go, okay, I can make a good living with this? Like, how many clients did you hit when you're like, okay, this is a sustainable career, we'll say?
Never. There's never a moment like that. There was a moment where I was like, okay, like I can make money. But I'm not I didn't come from money. I wasn't around entrepreneurs. Like, it was full rich dad, poor dad. Like, kind of like my grandpa was kind of my rich dad, like, because he, in his 50s, started to invest in real estate. Then he got in the stock market, made a lot of money there. But like, my parents didn't do that, super blue collar. So No, there was no, like, even to this day, my dad, every time like, if I have like a slow month, he's like, well, yeah, see, I told you, like, it's not gonna, so that's what I was around. So no, there was never a time where I was like, yep, this full-time job. Like, even though it was a full-time job, I never thought that like I could make as much money as I've made, and I'm not rich, but like I've had really good months and I'm like, wow, that's incredible. Like I would never be able to do that in a job the same way. But for me, it was not about, now it's about the money for sure, because I have a partner who's full-time, and, it has to be about the money. It's a business, right? At the end of the day. But it was always about the podcast. Like it was always about that mission of like, I know this, I'm obsessed with this medium. I know this medium is, we're ahead, but we're also behind. Like they're not fully picked up yet, especially in the business world. So that's all I was always focused on. I was just focused on like how to make a better intro and, how to, create a podcast strategy. So it was not I fell into this. Like if this was 1985, I would have been a car salesman, so.
I like that. I like it because we are like, as much as podcasting is super advanced, we're still super young. We're like not even 30 years old.
We're 30 years into the radio, right? So it's like Howard Stern's not on the radio yet. Like I know that we have Rogan, but there was a Howard Stern before Howard Stern. We just don't know his name because nobody remembers him. So Rogan is the Howard Stern before Howard Stern. And that's crazy to think about.
It's insane because if you think about it, you also have like Ricky Gervais, who is quote unquote the godfather of podcasting because he has one of the oldest podcasts, but no one really counts him as
or the Podfather,
or the Podfather, yeah,
Podfather as well. But and he's super early. Or Tom Green too. He had a TV show in his house, which is kind of a podcast. So yeah, well, here's what I say now. Podcasting now is not guys from Sirius who went from radio to Sirius to their own website, and that was called a podcast. That's not podcasting anymore. No. Podcasting is a business who wants to have a different form of content, a founder who just wants to talk instead of like try to type a post, or another way to access media, right? So instead of watching a true crime, you can listen to a true crime. And so that's modern podcasting. Video, tons of video. Podcasting and YouTube are almost the same now. So anyway, you know these things. It is crazy to kind of look at that evolution.
Oh yeah, no, it's insane because I came in just before Joe Rogan really blew up, and true crime blew up. I've been in it just over a decade now.
Yeah.
So it was right when Serial was starting to come in. That's when
that was even I missed that, but people mention it to me all the time.
Yeah, I'm the Serial generation. I like how I listen to a lot of comedians and they say, oh, we're the class just before Jerry Seinfeld, or like they say there's classes. So I'm like, I'm the class before Serial.
Yeah, exactly. I'm Rogan, you're the Serial, then it was Rogan, then it was, I don't know.
Yeah, now we're just waiting to see who's next,
Yeah, the Pauls, I guess,
yeah, you got
in a sense.
We'll say the Pauls. I love
no opinion, no comment.
Business acumen, great.
Yeah.
With what they're doing, it's just like Mr. Beast.
Yeah.
Just investing in themselves and
Mr. Beast. Honestly, if you just zoom out beyond podcasts, I know he doesn't do them. It doesn't really make sense for him to do them, but yeah, man, it is.
He's guesting on them now, and he has said how powerful podcast guesting is.
He'll do it, but it's going to be in some weird Mr. Beast way, probably.
Yeah, he's going to be going on the huge podcast, the top 1.00001%. The ones who already have those big names. He's not coming on to like the Ryan Sullivan podcast or the Invest in Yourself podcast yet. Keyword is yet. So I focus more particularly on the independent podcasters because that's where I come from. I'm an independent podcaster with my first one. You're focusing on the B2B. What do you feel made it not a smarter choice, but your decision to go B2B instead of like B2C?
Yeah, so I was similar to you, indie, really indie. And when I say that, I mean like your cousin who has a podcast, or like your best friend who started an NFL podcast. Like that's indie podcast, right?
Oh.
3 guys who do an NBA podcast on the weekends, or my friend has a treasure hunting podcast. He's not trying to make money with it. It does well on TikTok, right? So that's indie. That was me. To an extent, it still is me. I was that transitioned into the creator / solopreneur niche, which is LinkedIn, because I really reside on LinkedIn mostly. So then I started serving those people. So these are people with like a one-person business, some freelancers, right, who also have a good personality and they can go ahead and podcast. So then we did really well there, but the recurring revenue, it was hard to scale that. And I love coaching them, and they're my favorite people to work with. But in terms of like what they want versus what we could provide at scale, it wasn't going to, it makes sense for it to be our core offer. And I think an individual podcast producer, which I know many, many, many of them who don't have an agency like we do, that's probably somebody who they're more for, right? Because it's much lower rates, it's much more flexibility, much more time, right? All those things. So when I went in though, I was anti-company, right? I was like, I already worked for a company, that didn't work, all these things. And I thought that I was doomed. I thought that it was just like, nope, no companies. Then I realized that there are companies out there that fit this mold, that believe in these things, but it's so much harder to find them. It's so easy to find a creator or solopreneur or, just content creator who wants to do a podcast. They all do, right? And as long as you have the offer laid out correctly, it's really not that complicated. But with a business, it is more complicated. So what I realized is I'm like, okay, we're going to find the businesses who want to do it, who aren't doing it. And this comes back to the employee who's within that business because they DM me all the time. Then we're going to teach them how to do it. We're not going to be a production company. We're not going to try to sell them editing. They can already, our editing is expensive. You can do it with us. Some companies choose to do that. But now it's all democratized, right? Upwork and Fiverr, there's however many audio engineers in the US that are trying to charge $200 an hour, and it's not going to happen. You have to go work. You have to go be a bartender or sell cars or something, right? So I see that writing on the wall. And a B2B company, here's the thing. Guess what you should probably do? You should probably do it internally, and you should hire somebody like us to skip the learning curve just to teach your people, because you don't have time. They don't have time to learn it. You don't have time to teach them how to do it. So to round that answer out, I made it a mission to find companies that believed in that. Even though I was turned off from it early on, it's just a harder fish to catch.
And it's a more rewarding fish also, I would say.
Long term, they think much more long term. Yes, 100% in that case. Yeah, I have a creator or solopreneur, like they're on one day, they're off the next. Say, hey, so this happened, I skipped an episode, but like, I get it. It's life. I've been doing it for 6 years too. So I get it, but yeah.
It's, but not only that, it's when you're working with these long-term companies that are looking at the long-term, they're looking at the 5-10 year, because unfortunately solo is like, we look maybe a year. That's our biggest point. We're like, if we can make it to the end of the year, yes, we can go another year.
Yeah. Yeah. Year by year, month by month.
And then finally, then we're going to go maybe 2 years. And then we start building up when we start getting that accrued income. But with these companies that are thinking 5-10 years out, when you're planning the strategy, like you're coaching their employees, you're showing them like, hey, here are the tips and tricks that will streamline, will cut out from, I remember when I first started editing episodes, it used to take me an hour for an hour episode, and now it's down like the 15 minutes, thankfully, because you got all the tips, tricks, and shortcuts. Do you see a lot of the companies coming back to you and going, okay, we want to take something else, we want to learn to the next level, or along those lines? Or once they finish their training with you, they're kind of like, bye?
No, I mean, obviously it's a mix, but it depends on their goals. But I would say, yes, they do. Many of them do want to continue, right? We worked with one company for like 2 months, and then they're like, we need you for 6 months at least, right? And so then we do the 6-month contract. And that's because in that first month or two, 4 to 8 calls, it's just, there's not much you can get done. The strategy might take a month. And so that's why I don't base anything on hourly. Like, I don't look at it that way. It's a very, very limited way to look at things. It's more so, sure, timeline, but also just getting things done. Like, this may take 4 calls or it may take 30 minutes. It's okay no matter what. And so I'm now working with companies who understand that. And to bring it back, we start with the strategy. So month 8 is determined by what we do in month 1. So yeah, we have a 2-month minimum, but like, what are we going to get done in 2 months? Anything that, if you want this to be meaningful, I mean, here's the outcome, right? Instead of making a post on a company page of a quote of a CEO that nobody cares about that gets 3 likes, how about we put that, say the CEO doesn't want to be on camera. Okay, VP, CMO, CXO, CTO, I don't give a shit. Doesn't matter. Take somebody with a personality and put them on video and make that a 1-minute clip. But since we designed the podcast to do that, then you get 10 clips per episode instead of 1. And so those are the companies I work with, the companies who would rather have content that actually does something rather than just checks a box. And that always takes more than a few months to put together.
Yeah. Well, it's you have the planning, you have to figure out, you have the training as well, because even if you have a great personality, on camera is completely different than standing in front of an audience or standing in front of a board. It takes, just to get at ease, because I feel sometimes when you're talking with people who are just starting on their podcasting journey, they're very rigid.
Oh,
and
they're so nervous.
Yeah.
Incredible, actually. Well, you know this too, right? Say you'll do a pre-call. Like, we didn't do a pre-call for this, but we didn't need one. Right?
I figured a podcaster would have an idea of how a podcast would work.
Right? So we've done this a couple hundred times. You do a pre-call and it's like, oh shit, so cool. That story's great. And then you get on the podcast and like, yes, so when I entered the corporate world, and it's just like, yeah, just relax, man. So
where was that person before?
yeah, man. So but that's everybody. I always say that, that's why testing is very important. That's also why we don't do hourly, right? Because you could take a month. Imagine this: you spend like $3,000. You take a month to record 3 or 4 different episodes, 1 solo, 1 co-hosted, 1 interview, 1 roundtable. You spend the money to do the coaching and then to do the production, and then you look at all those objectively and go like, which ones really are shit? Okay, these 2. We're going to do co-hosting because these guys have great energy, and then we're going to do a solo because this one guy, he can just go off solo. So imagine you do all that. So then once you get a year down, you didn't create something that is not even working for you, and then you have to come back to us anyway. So I say front load it all, do all the testing, all the comfortability, get that down up front, then we roll.
Yeah, because with a podcast, one, it stays forever. It's always on the internet. So you want to make sure that the content right off the bat is at least passable. You want to start at passable, and then you can build on that. And that takes training. You have to teach how to ask the questions, how to, formulate the questions, how to come up with the questions, how to keep the conversation going. I know I'm working with a new company that their knowledge base is huge, but it feels scripted. And it just feels like they're just reading bullet points, and it's like, nah, you gotta put in the inflection in your voice.
I tell every corporate video, right?
Yeah.
It's like, we are revolutionary technology to overcome. Like, it's incredible, man. I tell
everyone when they start to model William Shatner from Star Trek as Captain James T. Kirk, because he just puts pauses randomly.
Man, that's really good, yeah.
Because that's how I learned to slow down my speech, because I used to speak really fast out of fear that people wouldn't hear me. And then one of my friends who was like uber confident, and he just goes, pretend you're Captain Kirk. Just simple like that. Just pretend you're Captain Kirk. And I was like, and then I started like putting random pauses in my speech, and people were like hanging on to every word. And I was like, shit, this thing works.
The power of the pause. That's what it's called.
Yeah. We're the podcast obviously deals with investing in yourself. So I'm going to ask you something about investing in your time and in your journey. What do you do to like invest in your growth, your education, self-care, other forms of personal development, and how has it paid off in your career? Because obviously you're a few years into this amazing journey as a podcast strategist. What have you done to invest in yourself to keep yourself growing?
Yeah, so I have a friend that I'll say this first. I was very skeptical of life coaching. I thought that was kind of a weird concept. I also think that like your mindset didn't matter that much. Like, it's just like you either do what you have to do, you don't, and your mindset is what it is, right? And so now I've came full circle on all of these things. So I do believe mindset's important. Number 2, I do have a life coach. We worked together for about a year and a half. Now it's just kind of once a month check in. But that helped a lot. And it took him probably 3 years to finally get me to the point where I was like, oh, I do want to work with you. Like, I see what you're talking about. Whereas before I didn't, right? So that's one. And I'll say, let me try to base this in reality. A life coach just adds perspective, right? They just ask questions that you're just never going to think to ask yourself. And then the answers to those questions are important, but you would never know if you didn't have somebody else. So it doesn't have to be a life coach. It can just be your friend, or honestly, I would say somebody who's not involved in your life, somebody who doesn't know your friends, they don't know your family, they don't know you. That's probably the best version of a life coach or a coach, right? Same thing with content, same thing with business, right? And so nobody's going to be able to figure you out anyway. Also, moving on from there, self-care, right? Yeah, man, meditation every day, 5 days a week. I mean, that's what it could be. 5 minutes, could be 20. I did 20 today. I did 10 yesterday. It just depends. Guided, non-guided. I can give you recommendations for guided ones. That's something I've been doing since, I don't know, 5 years, 6 years, probably longer. Damn, now that I think about it, probably longer than that. And then I'm obsessed with fitness, man. So I have a trainer. He was a guest on my podcast. Now he gets to send me workouts. And I stick to the workouts, and you can see the progress, like in the pictures. It's crazy. And that is another passion of mine. So I don't have a problem. I'm interested in too many things is really the problem.
It's a good problem to have. Good problem
for sure, but it also stretches you thin often. And when, I'm in a relationship, we've been together 4 years, we're going to get married eventually. We're going to have kids eventually, do all that stuff. So that's something that you got to think about, where it's like, I am glad I did a lot of all these things a little bit early on. But coming back to it, finally, I would say just hobbies, right? Like I golf, I'm so bad at it. I'm really bad at it, but I like that, like I hate it, but I also like it. So, just those types of things. I know there's like an Alex Hormozi tech bro, like version of life where you just like work is like, I agree with that. I agree with the fact that if work is your life, just do that all the time. Nobody should be able to tell you or stop you, but there's sacrifices to that. So just as long as you're willing to accept those sacrifices, you're good. For me, I'm not willing to work 20 hours a day every day, right? It's like I have these other things that I like to focus on and do. Also, I have another business. I have an entertainment company too. So that's a side business that I do on the side, So it's like, I have all these things. I have my main focus, and then I have a few sub focuses below that, and then I have hobbies, and so, yeah, it's hard to. I still think, I even asked Gary Vee about this. He's like, balance is not real, quote unquote, right? There's not an achievable state of balance, right? But you do have to find what works for you, and I would say that's the number one thing. I've tried cold showers every day. It's not for me, right? And it's all good, right? It's like I've watched Alex Hormozi. Okay, I'll take 10% of that. I've listened to Tim Ferriss. I'll take 10% there. I'll listen to Rogan. I'll take 10% there. And then you find what works for you.
I love that. I love how you're saying find what works for you, because that's the only way you'll ever find it, right? Where there's 8 billion people on the planet, there's not one perfect fit. Even though they say the hat, one size fits all, it's not true. Someone with a ginormous head or a super small head, it's not going to be able to wear that hat.
Nope.
So I love how you say just take 10% here, 5% over there, maybe 20% from someone else. That works. And
you got to try it. Like, you got to try it. Like, I started writing a book, like you mentioned, you were starting to write a book, and I stopped writing it, and it's okay, because it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter if I write it or I don't write it. Like, it doesn't change. Like, I'll be okay either way. If I want to come back to it, then I'll come back to it. But here's the thing. I can't be mad that I'm not a best-selling author, right? So it's like, that's the thing. So it's just determine. People have pro-level goals with amateur-level ambitions. That's where people get caught up, right? And listen, that's been me too. I thought I was going to be world tour rap star, because I made a few albums and I got on stage and like, I'm good at it. I can do it. I've gotten paid to do it, all that stuff. But like, you got to know where you're at, You don't have to stay in your lane, but at least know which lane you're in.
Yeah, know your lane, be able to play outside your lane, but know what lane you're super comfortable in. I want to come to the strategy part of a business, because it is important. Can you elaborate on some of your key concepts and components of a successful podcast strategy?
Yeah, so starting with the question of what do you want this to do for you, the most selfish answer possible. Because if nobody answers that, that's the thing. They end up interviewing 100 people and they go, yeah, I haven't made any money. Well, yeah, you made 100 people money. You told all the people that know you how cool these other people are. So maybe it makes sense. You didn't make as much money off of it, right? So it's coming back to and starting with that hard question of like, selfishly, what do I want to happen? Number 2, does this make sense for your life? Do you see yourself sitting down for 30 to 60 minutes a week and then maybe having a team around you to do the rest? Or are you somebody who's just like, no, I'm really good at writing, video and talking doesn't come as naturally to me? Okay, so then let's figure that out early, you know? And or maybe you are an introverted person, so then an interview show would make more sense, right? So the guest gets to talk more, right? Whatever that is. So the podcast strategy starts with you. Phil, me, anybody in the world will never be able to understand your business like you do, ever. It's impossible. It'll never happen. That's not what we claim to do. And if somebody does, they're lying. They're probably an Instagram guru. So chill. Let's start with the hard questions. Let's talk about you first. And then we're going to start the strategy from there. How many leads do we expect? Oh, this isn't about leads. It's more of a brand play. Okay, good. So let's figure that out. So if it is a brand play, that means we need a different logo. Right? So it's like the answers to the first introductory questions create the strategy from there. And then, I can give you the step-by-step of how we do it, but I don't know if that's as important.
No, I think what you just said, the first question, what is it for you being super selfish, is the most important question, because once you figure out what you want from the podcast, it's just nearly a cookie cutter outfit, because there's not too many strategies that fit every single selfish answer. Like if I want leads, you're like, okay, then we're going to focus on this type of podcast. Like it's a solo podcast, because that's the best way. Or if you do the interview podcast where you interview your ideal client, there's different strategies like that. We are coming to the end. I hate it because I just love talking with another podcaster, right? Because it's like we can geek out. But I want to know, first of all, we got Wilfredo asking where in Jersey you're from, because he's in he lives in the Pocono Mountains.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I'm from Hunterdon County, so that's on the border of I'm pretty sure Bucks County, PA. So not far from you, man. That's where I'm from. From 45 minutes, 35 minutes from Stroudsburg. I don't know where that's at. But I live in South Jersey now, so I live near Philly by Cherry Hill. So I've been in North. I've lived in far North. I've lived in Deep South. Now I'm kind of in the middle.
There we go. I want to know, I have your 10-year-old self here, Ryan. He's been rapping crazily. He's been dissing me massively, and I feel inadequate as a human being from your 10-year-old diss track. But what advice would you love to give to your 10-year-old self?
Man, and that is a hard one. My girlfriend's a teacher, so she would have probably better advice. I would say continue to go with your gut, right? Because kids don't have the indoctrination of life and reality, where they don't have the standards that have been set. They're about to. Like if you're 10, you're slowly getting into the rigid ideologies of everybody around you, but you still have that. So if you want to make some music, ask your parents to buy you a little drum set. I had the little, first act guitar and all that stuff, right? So like wherever your curiosity goes, do it. Just try it, right? Like if you see something on TV, you see something on YouTube, you think it's cool, okay, go try it, So that's what my advice would be.
I love it. It's great advice too. Just try it. Just go out and do it. See what happens.
You're 10. Nobody's stopping you.
Yeah.
Like nobody. It's not like are your parents going to be like, no, we don't think you should learn the drums at 10. Like, no.
I can see some parents maybe not wanting to have the noise.
I mean, definitely, obviously, but it depends who they are.
It's true. But most likely, most parents are
That's
like...
That's why Uncle Sully over here is really trying to give you the real advice. I'll buy you a drum set.
There you go. Yeah, the funkle's always the best.
That's it.
Ryan, I'm going to jump off stage here. I want you to let my audience know where they can connect with you if they're looking, if they have a B2B, if they have a business-to-business business, if you will, and looking for some help with the podcast and that. So the floor, sir, is yours.
Thank you, Phil. Appreciate it, man. Yeah, so you can find all of our information at podcastprinciples.com. The main platform for social media is LinkedIn, but I also have Facebook and Instagram and all the rest of them, so you can connect with me there. And I'll say two things. If you're window shopping, or, maybe you have a podcast, but you're not ready to invest further into it, I have a podcast that talks all about podcasting. It's called The Ryan Sullivan Show. It's about how to use your podcast to grow your business and vice versa. So you can go there, check that out, Ryan Sullivan Show. You can Google that. All the links will come up, also on YouTube. Then if you are willing to invest and you're like, listen, I need a little bit of help, but I'm not trying to drop like thousands and thousands of dollars, we have a group coaching program, and that's ending at the end of next week. So it'll be May 31st, 2024. So if you are somebody, we're going to take 8 people in that program. This is after 50 to 100 podcasts we've worked on. If you're at that point in time and you're saying to yourself, you know what, I am ready to go to the next level, then that might be something that's right for you. So Phil, appreciate you, man. And that's all I have to plug.
Ryan, I appreciate you coming on. Will's saying we're putting out great content. So if the El Jefe himself, Wilfredo, is saying we're putting out great content, we are. So Ryan, I want to thank you so much for spending 40 minutes with me, developing, just sharing knowledge and geeking out over podcasting.
I love it. It's my favorite thing to do. I could go for 2 hours, man. Would love to do it again. Appreciate you, Phil. Thanks for doing this, man.
You're very welcome. To my audience, make sure you check out the show notes down below to connect with Ryan, because it's worth your time. He's the podcast strategist. What else can I say? If he didn't convince you on this, maybe jump on a free call and see if he can convince you there. Why not? I'm pretty sure he has. I want to thank you all for listening. Ryan, you've been a great guest. Keep doing what you're doing, and always remember to invest in yourself.
Thanks for tuning in. Now it's time to take the next step. When you're ready to dive deeper into how to launch, grow, and monetize your podcast, Phil's got something special for you. Join him for a free webinar where he'll reveal the 3 secrets that have helped countless entrepreneurs succeed in podcasting. Click the link in the show notes to save your spot, and let's turn your podcasting dreams into reality.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.